In this video, I will go through briefly how classes work and help you decide which classes you want to do based on what you want out of it. If you want stat points, if you want house points, or if you just want to continue the story. That one is easy. If you just want to continue the story, do the classes that the story tells you to do. The end. But the other two, if you want stat points or house points, this video will tell you which classes are more worth it for you. I'm gonna start with some news that is probably old news to most of you by now, but Year 3 is available. You can now get further than just Chapter 1 of Year 3, so that's exciting. It means we can get to Hogsmeade, although at least in the beginning you can't go to Hogsmeade whenever you want. You have to wait until the story requires you to, which, you know, makes sense. The students at Hogwarts weren't allowed to just go to Hogsmeade whenever they wanted for fun. And I mean, we haven't been able to find any of the secret passageways that leads to Hogsmeade yet. Maybe we will in the future? Anyway, with this there are also 2 new energy spots. So 2 new spots where you can click to get free energy. One of them is in the East Towers. That's Peeves. If he's hanging out there, you can click on him. The other one is in Hogsmeade, and it's a guy who stands far, far away in one of the alleys and sort of waving at you. If you see him, click on him and he will give you energy. So with that out of the way, this video is about classes. So to be clear, it's about the classes where you go to a classroom to learn a potion or a spell or a maneuver or something. It is not the side quests, the ones where you hang out with your friends or try to solve the mysteries of Hogwarts. Anyway, some groundwork about classes. In each chapter there is 1 or 2 classes you have to take. There's 1 or 2 spells or something that you have to learn in order to be able to move on to the next chapter. To learn these spells you first need to unlock them, and that means getting 5 or more stars in that subject in order to unlock the spell. I likened that in a previous video to taking the classes before you take the test. So you take the classes to earn the stars, and then once you've earned the stars, you take the test and you learn the spell. So that is one reason to take classes, to learn the spell and to move on with the story. There are other reasons to take classes though, and that is to boost your level and your stat points and to gain house points. So it is possible, and it is even advised, to take classes even when the story doesn't require you to, in order to get XP to get to a higher level and to get to higher levels in your stats. That is the courage and empathy and knowledge, and also to earn house points so you win the house cup at the end of the year. Higher stats means more choices later in the game and better opportunities. There are some places where if you don't have high enough stats, you can't pick a certain choice. And that's always sad. So boosting your stats is important. So in Year 1 there are 3 classes you can take. It's Charms, it's Flying, and it's Potions. In Year 2 you can also do Transfiguration, and in Year 3 Herbology is introduced. I am not going to cover Herbology in this because I only just recently got to level 3, so I haven't really done a lot of research on Herbology. But I will get to that in a later video. So these different classes are not equal, they're not interchangeable. The most obvious way they're not equal is because they boost different stats. So Charms classes boosts your empathy, Flying classes boosts your courage, and Potions and Transfiguration both boost knowledge. So that's something to keep in mind when you choose which classes you're gonna take. If your empathy levels are low, take Charms classes to boost that, and so on. There is also a less obvious way that these classes seems to be unequal, and that is that they take a different amount of energy to complete. Now this is obvious in that if you choose a 1-hour class, a 3-hour class, or an 8-hour class, they will take different amounts of energy. The 1-hour classes don't take a lot of energy to complete, whereas the 8-hour classes, you have to wait for your energy to replenish quite a bit. But it also seems that Charms classes actually take a little bit less energy to complete than the other subjects. So a 1-hour Charms class you can do on maybe 20 energy points, whereas a 1-hour Flying class, for example, takes 24-25 energy points. Now, I can't be entirely certain about that, because it also seems that the higher you get in the years, the more energy all the classes take. And I'm not sure where in my research I did which classes, so it might be that I just started with the Charms classes and then I got higher up in level, and that means that the Flying classes, which to me seem to be the ones that took the most energy, was just the last ones that I did. I don't know. So the way you take classes, as you all know, is that you tap on different actions in order to earn stars. And then at each star you get to choose a reward. You get 3 options and you get to choose whichever one of those you want. and you also get a little quiz, which is the focus or the question or the tracing. That also earns you 10 extra stat points if you manage them. You also all know that energy is at a premium in this game, so when you're taking classes you need to be careful about your energy. Because in classes, the taps you make towards a star don't carry over to the next star. So if you're very close to a star and only need one tap to get to that star, if you then tap 5 times instead, you still only get to that star. And of course you need to know then how many taps does it take to get to each star. The answer is in 1 hour classes it takes between 10 and 12 taps to get to each star. In 3 hour classes it takes between 15 and 17, and in 8 hour classes generally between 16 and 19 or even 20. Again, this seems to vary, so early in the game it takes less energy to get to each star, and later in the game it seems to take more. And it doesn't always take the same amount. Take an 8 hour charms class and some of the stars might require 15 taps, some 16, and some maybe even 17. Now so far I've been talking about the 1, 3, and 8 hour classes that require 1 star to pass the class. So once you've gotten to that 1 star, you can just ignore the rest of the class, wait for the timer to end, and you will still have passed the class. But you won't have earned all those stars, and you will get fewer rewards. I'm gonna get to the rewards a little later. The classes where you actually learn the spell, the test if you will, they are 3 hour classes that take 5 stars to complete. So those you have to earn all of the stars in order to learn the spell, otherwise you have to start over again. And those 3 hour classes, they take about 10 energy points to get to each star. Sometimes 9, sometimes 11, but around there. Now I'm not claiming that this research is perfect. It's based on at least 2 classes of each duration and subject. So 2 1 hour charms classes, 2 3 hour charms classes, 2 8 hour charms classes, and so on for the other subjects as well. I did most of this research when I was in year 2, between level 12 and 15. And again, now that I've gotten a little bit further, it seems that all the classes takes a little bit more energy. So these numbers are not always going to be correct, but they will give you an idea of where to aim. And of course it always depends on which actions you have available. If you are very close to a star, but you can only choose to do a 5-tap action, of course that star is going to cost more than it technically had to. Which is why I'm advising you to save the 1 or 2 tap actions towards the ends of the stars, because that way you waste a little less energy. Now when it comes to choosing which classes you want to take, the first thing you look at is of course if you have to take any for the story, and if you don't have to do that but still want to take classes to boost your stats or to earn house points, then like I said before, the first thing you look at is which subject you want to take, because they boost different stats. And the next thing you want to choose is of course how long a class you want to take, because the different durations give you different rewards. And the rewards are always the same. 1 hour classes gives you 2 house points and 4 stat points. 3 hour classes give you 4 house points and 14 stat points. And 8 hour classes gives you 10 house points and 50 stat points. This is not including the rewards that you get to choose, because there it's up to you if you want to choose stat points or coins or energy or gems. And it's also not including if you manage the little quizzes, the focus, question, tracing, and so on. If you manage all of those, you get an extra 10 stat points per star. So that is 20 extra stat points for 1 hour classes, 30 extra for 3 hour classes, and 50 extra for 8 hour classes. So I mean, just based on that, an 8 hour class can give you 10 house points and 100 stat points. That sounds pretty good. But that in itself doesn't really tell you which class is more worth it, because of course 8 hour classes also takes a lot longer to manage. So I've made a spreadsheet based on my research. I'm going to link it down below. That'll give you a better idea of how long each class actually takes based on how much energy it took for me to finish those classes. And based on that, how many house or stat points you get per energy or hour spent on the class. So again, my numbers are not perfect, but it still gives you a pretty good idea. Again, I will link the spreadsheet down below, and I might make a separate video about how to actually read the spreadsheet, but right now I'm just going to give you the conclusion. So overall, 8 hour classes are the best ones to take. They give you 1.5 house points per hour you've spent on the class. When it comes to stat points, it automatically gives you 7.5 stat points per hour spent on class, and assuming you manage all the little quizzes, it actually gives you 15 stat points per hour spent on class. What's surprising is that 3 hour classes are not always better than 1 hour classes. 1 hour classes gives you 1.15 stat points per hour spent on class, whereas 3 hour classes give you 1.13. So it's a small difference, but the 1 hour classes are a little bit better for house points than the 3 hour classes. For stats, it depends on whether or not you're good at the little quizzes. If you generally manage the quizzes, 1 hour classes are the best one for stats as well. Because if you manage all the quizzes, a 1 hour class will give you 13.85 stat points per hour spent on the class. Whereas a 3 hour class will only give you 12.45. If you're generally not very good at the quizzes, if you don't manage a single one of them, a 3 hour class is slightly more worth it. It then gives you 3.9 stat points per hour, whereas a 1 hour class will give you 2.3. So in conclusion, 8 hour classes are the best. They give you more house points and stats per hour you've spent on the class than the other two. That said, if you're about to go to bed or if you know that you don't have time to do an 8 hour class, pick a 1 hour one. Even if you would have time to do a 3 hour class, it's probably not actually worth it. So that was it. That was a lot of numbers. I apologize for that. Numbers are confusing. But I will have written down all the important numbers in the description below, so if you want easy access to them, they're there. So comment below if you have any questions, or if you found any errors in my calculations. They may be there because math is not actually my strong suit, but I have double and triple checked this, so it should be at least roughly correct. And also, if you want me to make a proper video to explain the spreadsheet, let me know and I will do that. But for now, go do some classes and have fun.